Hi, I would like to thank some folks here at the start. People like Lindsay Lee, Sam Ray, Darren Ziegler, Jake Lovell, and at old Jake Sisko. All of these are people who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kicked us some money and helped support the shows. You can be like them by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv to help support the shows. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about The Stanley Parable, which is a comedy game developed by Galactic Cafe for the PC in 2013.
Comedy and existential horror.
Yes. No matter how much you think you're in control, you're not.
And what is the value of being in control?
Yeah.
Do we want to be in control?
It's a distinction without a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the Devo song Freedom of Choice.
Oh, yeah?
As a game. Yeah.
I liken it to Duck Amuck. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's I think that it's comparing games to Duck Amuck.
Yes, I think that is the thing.
Like
there is a Duck Amuck game for the DS that I've thought about bringing to Abject Suffering, or not, to Abject Suffering. But I do not know how well it controls like on an emulator with the mouse as the stylus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's a little bit of there's more going on here than you might think.
Yes. Yeah. This is a Cole jam, although we had both talked about this. We were both big fans of the Stanley Parable. This is a really important game. This has kind of been hanging around as like a almost a break glass in case of emergency, like in case you record a 4-hour episode about Horizon Zero Dawn.
And then less than 24 hours later, record WoF again.
Yeah. So this fits both a programming let's say need that we have for something a little bit breezier, but also like this is an important and cool game, and the best thing you can do for comedy is dissect it.
Well, it's yes, absolutely. It's more than comedy though. Like there's no way this episode won't be at least as long as it takes to play the game.
Yeah.
There's more here to talk about than maybe it seems.
Yes.
Both in terms of what the game is trying to say and how this game fits into like the construct of what a game can be.
Yes.
And not in the ways that you expect. Mm-hmm. One of the things, on revisiting the Stanley Parable is like, this is not a Gone Home.
No.
It's, that's not what we're doing here. Like it is gamier than that. And less narrative focused and much more like playing with the box.
Yeah, playing with the box is exactly the metaphor that I put into the notes. You are in the box, actively pressing and trying to find seams that may not be necessarily apparent at first.
Yeah,
it's
the good shit.
Yeah, and like I call it a comedy game because that's the foot that it puts forward. I think that it uses kind of the language of gameplay, and just the nature of choice in games, like as a way to deliver jokes, and then it delivers other things unexpectedly as if they were jokes, kind of using the same mechanism, except instead of good laughs, like you get you get an emotionally devastating scene about whether or not anything you do is consequential. Yeah. The apartment ending, which is one of the bleakest things that has been put in games. And games include like Pathologic and Chernobyl and stuff.
Right. just incredibly bleak. Like it's a comedy game to me, the same way kind of Portal is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's very funny, but it's trying to do something else, and the humor stands up and everything too. Like we'll talk about all this stuff, but like what a joy to revisit this. Like it's been just the right amount of time because it's not like I did a lot of stuff I didn't do the first time I played it, but it's like rereading a really good book.
Did you get the "Don't Play Stanley Parable for 5 years" achievement?
I believe I did.
Yeah,
I believe I stayed. I did not get the Tuesday achievement or the random achievement.
Nope.
And this will dovetail really well into a discussion about achievements as well, because this game has things to say about achievements.
It does.
The basic premise is you play play this.
Oh yeah,
But the more you know about this, the worse it will be. And there's no reason for you not to have played this by now if you haven't. Don't be a dummy.
Yeah, it is very inexpensive. It runs on basically anything. I don't think it runs on Mac. I had to play this on the Windows machine, but it's
basically anything.
Well, I've got 2 Macs in the house, bud.
That's fully 66% of the United States supply of gaming Macs.
Oh gosh, yeah. So it'll run. It'll run on what you have. So go play it if you haven't already. I mean, this is kind of a foundational thing in indie game kind of stuff now, like just as part of that wave of like metatextual meta game kind of stuff. Like I kind of like look at this coming out in 2013 and then like Undertale coming out in 2015 as like games that use the structure of games to be about different stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like a little bit like Little Inferno.
Yeah, Little Inferno. Around the time
more of its cohort, I would say, than Undertale. Undertale feels like a different thing to me. So the basic premise of this is you play as a guy named Stanley. You are a silent protagonist. You control in first person, and you work at this like absolutely this Brazil like pointless job.
You sit
on this office bureaucratic nightmare.
You sit in the closet, and then a command comes down on your computer for you to press a button, and then you press the button, and then a new command comes down for you to press another button, and you do that. And Stanley is happy with this. At least that's what the narrator says, because Stanley is a very boring person, basically an empty vessel. But one day, everyone disappears, and the narrator begins describing Stanley's actions and thoughts, importantly, well before they happen. And Stanley went through the left door before you even go through it. And these are instructions because he's trying to keep you on a story path. And always because Stanley does not speak, and because Stanley's thoughts are your thoughts or not. Stanley doesn't think and you are thinking, you are just moving him. The narrator will speak for Stanley. Adding his the reactions in that would be appropriate for the story.
Yeah, the narrator, whatever the narrator is, ascribes to Stanley whatever Stanley is.
Yes,
in this, it gets compared to a lot of these like kind of walking simulators because it's so simple. All you can do is move around and look and click on things. You cannot jump, you cannot crouch. You get an achievement for trying to jump. What the actual gameplay of this is deciding, whether you obey these commands from the narrator and pushing against the boundaries of what is possible within this game design. Yeah. And kind of the way this game makes hay is by accounting for the ways that you can do that. That's kind of where the duck amuckness comes from. But they're incredibly planned and surprisingly kind of like emotionally rich endings a good amount of the time.
Yes.
For these things, at least philosophically like interesting.
And what it kind of ends up being is this process of you trying to outsmart the game. And the first couple of times it's kind of funny when it accounts for it, but then it starts to become for me, it leads to kind of this feeling of creeping dread, like, oh, everything is accounted for. There is no escape from this. I am, even when you're out of bounds, you're still in bounds. Right.
It's part of what the game is doing is critiquing the idea of outsmarting the game. Like the idea of a game or a work of fiction is a constrained space.
Yes.
And a lot of the magic of that is dependent on fooling the experiencer into thinking that you can do things outside of that space.
See the magic circle. Yeah.
Yes. And that's a fiction.
Yes.
You know, and that's but the cool thing about this game is that it's trying to say a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it defies being like, this game is about something. So that, we're going to compare this to other games, that have a similar genre to this. It's funny. I was trying to think of the reason why, like describing this as a comedy game, was something that, rankled on me a little bit. It's because, jazz punk is a comedy game.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do anything other than make jokes. Like, I don't like jazz punk very much. I think it's too long and I think it's fatiguing. This just has higher aspirations. Like, not that comedy isn't important, but it's like very funny on its way to doing something. Yeah. Which is just like, it's what I want. I respect it. The comedy half and the philosophy half work really well together. Compare like the two poles on the other sides of this would be like The Witness and jazz punk. For pure philosophy and pure humor. And this is a much more elegant and complete package. Yeah. Integrated. Than either of those games.
It really, it is integrated, using both of those kind of as a palette. There's some things here that it's, saying about The Witness, kind of like, where is the locus of control at between the designer, the player, fictional agents in the game? Where is that illusion of control at? There are some audio logs in The Witness that talk about, like, in any situation where somebody technically has control over somebody else, a teacher over a student, right? Well, that goes both ways. The needs of the student and the fact that they are a young person at all also constrains what is possible for the teacher, right?
Yeah, the dualism. The hand makes the glove.
Yes. Yeah.
And vice versa.
And that is, that is all over this, deciding who needs who and how things can crumble apart when one or more of them diverge from the other.
What if something that is, has always been implicitly, like something that has always been presented the illusion of antagonism while being entirely cooperative between you and the developer, is actually the antagonism is elevated.
Throwing a grenade at me is a very hostile gesture, but also grenades in shooter games propel you forward. They get you out of,
they get you to move the thing. They beep to tell you that they're there. They're incredibly polite. Shooters have polite grenades. This is like, what if the game is yelling at you? And belittling you and calling you stupid, and not in like a Spec Ops way. It's just it's richer than it seems. I fucking love it. Like it was man revisiting this.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, super good. If you know this because of the narration. Probably this was part of that, like, we can narrate our games thing. Like that became kind of this is an early example of that. Having a narrator. There's a British man named Ken Brighting who narrates this, and the voice acting is incredible. He adds so many extra syllables to every syllable.
Yep.
Every consonant has multiple vowels within it. It is just a joy to listen to.
He varies up his pitch and rhythm a lot. Like, just there are a couple of very tersely delivered, just like dry British punchline that is just perfectly timed on this kind of stuff. And also, like, because of the range of things that are possible and these endings that you get to, they're endings, but they're actually just like the content of each of the paths. They're more like routes in a visual novel or something like that. But because of the variety, Ken Brighting has to do a lot of different stuff. So he's got to start as the staid BBC narrator kind of guy, and then he will either become a cackling maniac or a complete emotional dependent wreck, right?
Yeah, depending on how things go. He contains multitudes the same way the game does, and what Stanley is.
And apparently, just the lead designer of the original mod, Davey Reedon, just put out for auditions, and Ken was somebody who came in like, oh yeah, so Ken works, and he did all of the narration in like one session, like, oh, here you go. And then Ken Brighting just kind of stuck around, and anything that is related to the Stanley Parable, like people who make fan projects for Stanley Parable will get him to do stuff for it, oftentimes pro bono. Like Ken Brighting is like, really generous with the community that has kind of popped up around this thing.
It's he does his Twitter account.
Yep.
In character as such, a lot of time, which I think is really cute. And when I found out, like Davey Reedon, the guy who originally made this, he made it as a Half-Life 2 mod in 2011. My man was 22.
Yep.
That makes me want to die.
It does.
It's so funny and good and clever. 22?
20, the shit that I was making at 22?
Yeah, I was passed out in a yard. Like I fell asleep after the bar in a yard.
Yeah, I was going through half a suitcase of cheap Cincinnati beer a night, dude.
Yeah. 22?
and then I looked at I was like, okay, so he was David Reedon was 22 when he started working on this. The other guy who came on for the for the HD remaster, Pew, I looked at that, he was born in 1994.
Yeah. I'm done.
I'm dust.
This is the episode that convinces me to go walk off a pier.
I'm just gonna
walk west until I can't anymore.
I'm gonna stand on an ice floe and then push myself out and decide whether or not that's cultural appropriation before I have somebody shoot the flaming arrow at it.
Yep. Too late to change your mind. You're on the ice floe.
Yeah.
Is there a culture that just kills themselves for being old by just standing in an ice floe until they die of exposure? Because then that might not be cultural appropriation.
I don't know. I think
at least that's my safety school.
I might be mixing up First Nations thing with Viking funerals, actually. So I think the flaming arrow works. Yeah, it's a mashup. Just ridiculous that he just started putting this together at age 22. You know, like a lot of the DNA was there, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do anything in the source engine, but I want to get into the game industry, and this is the one that's available to me. So fuck it, let's learn." Let's learn while making this kind of, generation defining game for indie games. Yeah.
He taught himself, which is just incredible stuff.
Yeah.
He was frustrated. He came at this initially from the perspective of a critique of games.
Yes.
Like this is a game about games that's making fun of games. And he was really sick of games that kind of offered the player like an illusion of choice, which is, has become, a sub theme in and of itself.
Yep.
And not always something that I'm sick of. Like sometimes when I can fall prey to that, like I like the choices in something like a New Vegas.
Yeah.
I like games that critique choices in something like a Spec Ops. But this is also a perspective I'm really amenable to.
Yeah.
It was a hugely successful mod. And because it was so successful, it drew the attention of Pew, who you had mentioned, 16, who wanted to work on the standalone release. Pew, by that point, had done a lot of graphics stuff as well.
Yeah.
And modding, all these wonderkins.
You just end up with like there's a Neil Cicierega out there just fucking ruining you by simply existing. Yeah,
there's always somebody younger and better than you.
So don't try.
There always will be. Yeah. I mean, try because you're younger and better than someone else.
True.
But just keep in mind that there is a pecking order and you're not at the top of it and you never will be.
I'm losing my edge to the kids who are coming up from behind.
Yep. And that is the way of the world. You will continuously.
It'll happen to you. But yeah, he done a lot of graphics work and decided, hey, let's work together with a bit of an expanded team. The credits are not just Reedon and Pew, but to give this game more of its own visual identity. And I mean, just also, Reedon put out the original mod. There was stuff that he wanted to do that just couldn't be implemented because of asset restrictions or just because of his incomplete understanding of how to make stuff happen in Source SDK. So like all of those expanded capabilities just gave them the ability to do new and cool stuff to the point where they say like, yeah, the HD remix version, that's the definitive version, at least so far.
Yeah, they included all the original endings and added 10 more to that. When the team was getting ready to launch the game, they decided they wanted to put out a demo, but it was difficult because players didn't get the vibe from it. Like just a slice from the middle of the game did not explain what was cool about the game, and players were confused and angry. So they made a new game That's it's the basically a half-hour little mini episode that takes place in this universe. It's for free, and it teaches you the appeal of this basically.
Yeah.
Like if you like it is a great demo in that it spoils no content, and if you like the demo, you will like the game.
Really well put together as a piece of like salesmanship almost.
Yes.
It's like we can't, if we cut off any part of this thing to try and give it to you, both parts will die, both the small part and the big part for you. So how do we encapsulate what is special about that in this completely new thing? A lot of effort. Like it's a pretty complicated demo. Lots of unique assets and stuff in there. It's a good demo. Did you replay it for the show? I did, and I put the notes here, but we don't have to talk about it in depth.
I didn't. I played it before.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just ran out of time, which sounds ridiculous because this game is 2 hours. But we were recording this less than 24 hours after doing the Horizon Zero Dawn thing. Yep. And I'm putting my stuff into boxes. Yeah. So everybody forgive me for not having done that. I will let you. I looked into it a little bit. I will let you book report it to me in a summary fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is probably the best move. I should have. I just didn't.
That's fine. I let you off the hook for it. It's fine.
Thank you.
Well,
listeners, each individually let me off the hook.
Also, we didn't talk about whether or not we did it. I just did it just in case. Also, because I hadn't played it before. Actually, I had never. I didn't do that. So.
I had played it when I first covered this. There's an episode of Check It Out Comrade about this game. I'm pretty sure. So after this saw commercial success, Reedon and Pugh kind of parted ways for a bit. Reedon went on to create a game called The Beginner's Guide, which is maybe my favorite walking simulator.
It's so good. I think about that game a lot, actually.
Yes. That game, took my breath away at the end in terms of like heartbreak. Like it pushes a lot of my buttons.
Yeah.
And it also deals with really interesting themes between, creators and consumers.
Yes.
The people who create their work, the author and stuff. We will do that at some point.
Yes.
When next we need to gush about something for longer than it takes to play the game.
Yep.
But yeah, I owe myself a replay of that. And I love that game so fucking much.
Yeah. Can't give it a big enough thumbs up. Pugh went off and founded his own studio with an excellent name. It's called Crows. And he began working with Justin Roiland. People might know him as one of the Ricks and Mortys. I think he's both of the Ricks and Mortys. But
funniest thing I ever saw turned into a pickle.
Damned if he didn't turn into a pickle. Justin Roiland's funny. Like it's just that show is just weird. But they released kind of their debut game, Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a whirlwind heist. They also did a couple of other things. Those are funny and fine. But I think this is something you said back around the time that these came out, which is it's like these two things, the Beginner's Guide and then Dr. Langeskov, like that is the clearest that you have seen, like who was responsible for what in a given product where they work together.
Yeah. It's a real Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah.
It's a real like Wings, and listening to John Lennon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like kind of situation. Because Dr. Langeskov is very funny. Like I think that is laugh out loud. It doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
I found it to have zero heart, and realizing that I am coming to this kind of thing for heart.
Yeah.
Is what playing that kind of made me realize.
Yeah. So I think that they all of this merits playing, but I think that that I am more on the Beginner's Guide kind of thing, and I think that when they work together, that is also cool and good.
And you might think that the kind of the depth that we're saying is in these games is, you might not agree. You might think it's fakey and just want the jokes. You might be a Langeskov person.
Yeah. You might think, oh, that's too arty, just kind of pretentious, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you guys are reading into it. You fucking idiots. Your fat, sweaty game criticism is going the way of the dinosaurs. The new TikTok lords will come through and turn you into a dust.
All I can say is all the stuff, all of my reaction to this, I feel pretty deeply. I've got convictions about the stuff that this game is putting in front of us. So,
and when you say that, hey, you fat, sweaty games crit, you're going to give way to gaming TikTok crit, I just say, yes, sir.
Yep.
Spare me, sir. Like,
I'll be out here on my ice flow, sir.
They're working on. I didn't realize this. I didn't know because it's in the VR hole. I didn't know about these other games.
Oh yeah, Accounting. I've not played Accounting. This moved it back up to the top of my list after I found out that it's on Oculus Quest, which makes it easier to get a hold of for me. It's also on PSVR as well, but they worked together again this time with Justin Roiland to make a game called Accounting, and then kind of a similar like remaster called Accounting Plus, which is more similar to the Stanley Parable than the stuff they worked together, or the stuff they worked separately on. Yeah,
I'm really curious about that. There is a Ultra Deluxe edition of this that was announced. It's supposed to come out last year, but COVID happened. So now the team is aiming for 2021. It has a great trailer, which you can watch. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Like they're just going to add more. And I'm excited about that.
I will not turn down more Stanley Parable.
Let's get into it. We're going to talk about kind of more of the things that's trying to say with these endings as we talk about the endings a little bit. Yeah. It's not that each one like dovetails specifically into a theme or what have you. It's more of like a scattershot of things that it's interested in that we will surface as they come up in the episode.
Yeah. I'll sum up the demo here for anybody who's listening because there is stuff to react to this. You start out in a waiting room, you take a number, you go through this waiting room several times, and the number always increments by one because nobody else is going through this. And what you're doing, like it's like you're going on site to view a demo. Like, okay, you're going to play the demo of the Stanley Parable, but you never actually get to the demo. You pass by. I love this. There's a hallway that has 4 paintings of games with notable demos or famous demos. They've got Gunpoint, Metal Gear Solid 2, Half-Life, and Kentucky Route Zero. And it's like, oh yeah, those are all good demos. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. The Hall of Fame of demos.
Yeah. But then the narrator's like, oh, isn't the anticipation killing you as you're waiting for this? In fact, let's prolong this. Why don't we show you how the demos are made? So it kind of takes you to a big room with a bunch of smaller rooms off of it that are all like divisions for like, here's where we make the walls. And he tells you to try to walk through it because like, we made a wall you can walk through. And then you just stop when you hit it. And he says, oh, it must still be in development. Yeah.
I love the idea of that the wall is currently being developed, so you cannot walk through it.
But there's like a room you just like, yes, a good thing about a demo is making the player feel good about themselves. So here's where we come up with compliments for them. But he runs out of compliments very early on, like after 2 of them. It's just a bunch of goofy stuff like that. And you think, okay, I'm going to go to the final choice room where I decide, do I like the demo or not? He locks you out. You dummy. You haven't played the demo yet. So you go back to the demonstration room, and the door opens and you walk through and you're back in the waiting room.
Yeah, it just restarts.
Yeah.
Effectively, like not really, because it's gonna increment on itself, but it gives the illusion of restarting. Like again, it's playing with the box.
Yeah. But you go through this a couple more times until it's just like, okay, there's no way to actually end this, so why don't we just put you in a room with a sign that says the end with thumbs up on it? And then you finally get to the escape and take the elevator. And then it opens into the office door of the first game, and the game fades when you walk out into the cube farm.
As what would start.
Yeah.
I don't have the demo fresh in my mind. Did you watch the trailer for this? The like you can do anything trailer that also it doesn't have anything to do with the game.
No, I didn't.
That is really that feels like it's very germane to the themes of the game.
Oh, yeah.
It presents itself as a fake game where you can do literally anything.
Okay.
You know, like how video games do that.
Yeah.
And it's very funny. It's like, you know, I see here you've taken this bicycle and infused it with the ghost of your dead uncle. Now you can use this haunted bicycle to mine for gold or to find mineral deposits or to, you know, teach children the value of consequence or whatever. And then a little loading bar pops up and it's initiate snake oil salesman protocol. And it's like, oh, you're going to use the ghost bike of your dead uncle in order to, you know, con the local townspeople. Very good. And the funny thing, like what it's trying to say with that, you know, explaining the joke part of this, people are probably groaning, but what it's saying is like games that promise you can do anything, that's not a thing.
No, it's not. Like everything has to be accounted for and developed. Like it you know, there is always going to be a constraint. Well, because there's constraints on the real world, but like everything has to be designed, you know?
You don't want a game where you can do anything.
No.
Like you think you do, but you certainly don't.
Yeah.
You know, because anything is huge.
It's a pretty wide space. You know, the game where you can do anything, it's like the game developers in Disco Elysium, where they're doing like the little mainframe thing where they're like, oh, we need to allow for any possible combination of all these different character parts and have like individual dialogue, and it grows exponentially so much that the studio goes out of business. You know? Yeah.
It contributes to the haunting of an entire commercial district.
Yep.
You know, when you start the game for real, we start with a small cutscene, a voiceover about Stanley. He's employee number 427, lives in an office. He pushes buttons for a living, and he loves it. He relishes every order that comes in as though he was made exactly for this job.
Because he was.
He was. Yeah, exactly. And the inciting incident is one day, no one shows up for work. No orders came through his monitor. He's isolated and he decides to leave his office to see what's going on.
Yeah, because a Stanley alone with no input is nothing, right?
Yes. Hand makes the glove.
Right. So each of these endings has its own name. The freedom ending, paradoxically, requires you to follow the narrator's instructions exactly. As you go, and you know, he's again putting thoughts in your head like, oh, you see, you did this, it never happened to him before, what are the possibilities? And you reach your first choice, these two doors, and this is where he says, and Stanley went through the left door. And if you're like me, I say, no, fuck you, he goes through the right door. But no, in this one you go left.
Yeah, that leads to different endings. It's a good thing to do that. But if you follow the instructions, you also get this kind of payoff.
Yeah.
You head through some hallways, and it's very like creepy, this entire building.
Yeah.
Which even before it starts getting explicitly like dreamlike and non-Euclidean in terms of its layout, makes no sense.
Yeah.
Even initially. You're going to check the conference room to see if you'd missed a memo, and the conference room has a slideshow and a whiteboard that is very funny. I think this is actually pretty good advice on not to get fired, which is just talk less.
Yeah, talk less and just do a really good job. I'd simply just do a really good job.
Yeah, like don't stick your head up. You're not going to get whacked. So then he says, you know, Stanley decided to go check up with his boss's office, and you get another choice. You can go up or downstairs. You go up to your boss's office and you see behind his desk, he has this sci-fi like sinister keypad. And the narrator reveals the combination. Like Stanley, knew that the combination was 2845. He doesn't know how he knew this. It just came to him.
Yeah. So this is like a place where several different jokes happen. Your first time through, you're not going to know the combination, so you're going to wait for it. When you enter the combo, like a bookcase slides to the side, and you go through a door, kind of to this behind the scenes section, like in Portal or something like that. On subsequent runs, if you enter the code before you should rightly know it, because you walk into the room and it takes time for him to deliver the lines, you just go put in 2845 instead of just opening this. Their narrator gets really cranky with you for not being patient enough to listen to the text that he prepared. So he says, all right, well, you must be really anxious, so why don't we play some new age music for a little bit to calm you?
Yeah. You go into timeout there. As this goes, it seems like every time you're starting this is the same, but there will be subtle differences.
Yes.
There are a lot of different intros and such, and some of them are kind of hidden and goofy.
Yeah.
So eventually you'll get there and the password will just be open and the narrator goes yada yada. There's a combination, go through the thing. But he can kind of go, when you leave the room initially, you can have different messages as well. Like there's a message you can get, and I got it for the first time this playthrough. I never got it before, which was Stanley was sure he was being followed. And if he looked behind him at the right time, he'd catch whoever was doing it.
Yeah, I've read about that. That sounds so fucking creepy.
It's super good. I'd never gotten it before, but it's just like, oh shit, that's great. The secret passage opens, you go through it. And, the narrator says, Stanley feels emboldened. He's able to make decisions on his own for the first time here. And of course, the irony being you're not making any decisions. You're just doing what the narrator says.
Yeah. All you did was just, yes, you are technically out of bounds. You shouldn't be back here, but it is still within the framework of the game,
Yes.
So you're given a branch here. One catwalk leads to the mind control facility, whereas another one it just has a handwritten escape sign on it, saying go out this way for freedom. If you go to the mind control facility, you find that there is you're inside of this huge silo that is lined with TV screens, each one showing the viewpoint of the different employees from the company or whatever this is that is here.
And the narrator introduces this like joy can doubt. Like he's horrified. Like, is this the reason why I was happy accepting orders? Because I was being controlled to be happy.
Yeah.
Like what is the difference between, feeling happy due to external stimulus or something from within, or if you're able to be controlled from outside, just being made to be happy. Like you're still happy. It still spends, is kind of what they're saying a little bit with this. You get to this room full of buttons that control kind of emotions and movements. This control system needs a reset. When you go and do that, you're in this power room where the narrator says you can turn off the mind control machine and free everybody. You get a different ending if you don't. But here, if you do so, it opens up the facility. Like you get this large bunker door, and the narrator spills all this purple prose about, you being exalted, your life being your own. Maybe the idea was not to search for meaning, but to realize, the value of meaning. Like maybe it was just to realize this isn't actually that important.
Yeah.
Essentially, like give up and live in the Matrix or live in the Joey can,
right,
or whatever. He blue pills you.
Yeah, no, he blue pills you as it opens on, just some greenery, right? It just you're in a countryside, and you can step out, and just hearing all this stuff about liberation and freedom and not chasing every mystery, and this is the most positive the game ever gets. While talking about freedom as you exercise exactly zero freedom.
Yeah, it's one of two times the game actually takes control away from you, or Stanley. As soon as you step outside, it turns into a cutscene.
Yes,
and you cannot your inputs no longer do anything.
Right.
So this is the beauty and the freedom of ceding control. Again, like that Devo song. Freedom from choice is what you actually want.
Right.
And this restarts you at the office. If you go through all that again, and instead of pressing the mind control button off, you can turn it on. And this is great. The narrator then switches from like a good cop to bad cop immediately.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're going to disobey me. All right. Oh, so you want to take control of all of this. Like you're not going to follow my story, but also you think that you can use these buttons to do a better job than me. Well, since you ruined my story, guess what? This place is going to blow up. There's going to be a nuclear detonation in 2 minutes.
He justifies it in the fiction, which I love so much. He's like, that button was programmed that if it didn't have the correct DNA sequence, it would trigger a nuclear failsafe. Yeah. No, you can't. It's still within the dumb sci-fi, of the first ending.
You can't tag me. I have a force field up.
It's literally that. And he does this thing where you have 2 minutes and you're in a room full of buttons and levers and shit. And he's just like, fucking dressing you down.
Yep.
Absolutely. Like, you're probably wondering what happened to your coworkers. Well, tell you what, I erased them.
I can do that.
Other times I do, like, this is the, the Grant Morrison Animal Man ending.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're my creation and I'm not good to you.
Right. You don't remember this, but I've killed you, thousands of times. And like the narrator basically is Am in some of these.
Very Am. Yeah. And I love, so you go around, and if you go around and press buttons and stuff, he's like, why are you doing that? You're so convinced that there's some answer.
Right.
Like, you can press a button and stop the timer, but that's ridiculous. Why would that be the case?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be the case.
I could put you in a cutscene.
The reason why you think, yeah, totally.
But
the reason why the player thinks it's the case is because video game.
Right. You're controlling. I'm pressing buttons and it's doing stuff. So I should be able to press those buttons and do stuff to be able to press buttons in the game and do stuff in the game.
And win.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I should be able to escape this because this is a video game problem, and video game problems leads to video game solutions.
And of course, because there's no such thing as irony, really, the people for a long time believed that there was a correct combination of buttons you could press to get a new ending here. Just kind of one of those.
What a sucker!
One of those urban legends. Oh God. But like he adds some time to the timer, just so he can continue his monologue, which is pretty good. But then eventually the timer ends, screen goes white, boom, you're dead. That's what you get for disobeying.
Almost the most sadistic of the narrator.
From the narrator
functions.
to you, there's one that's way more sadistic that you can do the narrator.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of the apartment ending.
Oh yeah,
I think the apartment ending is way meaner.
Oh,
than this. Because it's I'm in that picture and I don't like it.
Yeah. That one did make me cry the first time I played it. Yeah, that may have been because I was drinking.
That's a rough one.
Yeah.
If you do all the same things we talked about and instead take the hastily written like escape path, there. The narrator passes you off basically at a certain point. He says, although this passage had the word escape written on it, in truth, at the end of this was this hall Stanley would find his violent death. And you go down this very, very long hallway while the narrator tries to convince you to go back. And the fact that you're not doing this, you're obviously consciously disobeying me.
He's getting angrier and angrier. And he's saying, door's open. You can just recover that ground. Go back.
Yep.
But then you get to the end and you jump down this hatch and fall through a shaft, landing in this weird little Half-Life platform car that is conveying you down this line toward two crushing plates. And then
like one of those crusher things that shows up.
Like crushers, like crushers have. And the narrator, as you are inching along, just talks about how pointless your life was. That's kind of a theme. In a lot of these endings.
And it could have just ended there and that would have been fine. But instead the plates freeze right before you're crushed and a second narrator pops in. A female narrator.
Yep.
Pops up. You fall, you get described as being crushed, but instead of getting crushed, you fall into this catwalk below and you are now in this like back room, with these large glowing letters that say the Stanley Parable. The narrator says, soon you're going to be back in your office. What did you think you were going to accomplish by going off of this?
What did the narrator think he was going to accomplish by doing this to you? So I love this because all you have to do to make the narrator not omniscient is to put another layer on top of him that is describing that is putting
Describes
him on
the narrator.
Yeah, putting him on a rail by describing what he has done. Right. Yeah.
Who narrates the narrator? And this is the ending that goes the strongest into the dualism stuff, where it's like, all of Stanley's choices had been preordained before, he had them. And, what is the difference between, like, he was already effectively dead is the thing. The narrator is right. He was dead before he started this, and if you're dead at that point, what meaning does your life have?
Right.
Again, extremely bleak. And just talking about free will and lifting the curtain on the construct of the reality that you're in the game. Because you walk into this big beautiful museum that shows assets from the game, things from different stages of the game, like overhead maps of areas you've been in,
dioramas of the office. Yep,
you've been dead from the start.
I love this museum because it is laid out like a museum, like architecturally, like drawing you into different wings to different exhibits. There are plaques that are informative.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. But, regardless, you'll see everything. You'll get to the exit and you'll see an on and off switch, and then the narrator says, oh, look at these two as you go back to the crusher, how they wish to control one another, how they wish to destroy one another, how they both wish to be free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, there is this dependence, or charitably reliance, necessary, and just the necessary nemesis that both of them need to have for anything they do to mean anything.
And she lays it out. She says, the only actual choice you have here, the only way to save both of you from this relationship is to stop the game. Not walk somebody else's path, just turn off the game and walk away.
Yeah.
Of course you don't do that because it's a video game, and she's like begging you to do it, and you die.
Yep.
And the game restarts. The only winning move is not to play. Like anything that's within this constrained play space that we've created is not, you are dancing to somebody's tune no matter what when you are playing a game.
Yes. There's kind of a minor ending here that's a little bit of nothing. The escape pod ending, where as you're going through certain areas, it's notable which doors close behind you and which don't. If a door doesn't close behind you, it means that it's always an option to go back, even if it doesn't necessarily mean anything. One of the doors that you can go through before it closes, you can walk in, start the animation, and then back right out is the door to the boss's office. And there's no narration on this path. You walk all the way back through the office to get back to Stanley's little closet, but the room 427 is closed. The door next to it is open, leading to this ridiculously long stairwell that goes up to an escape pod.
Yeah, and when you step into it, it just goes to black.
Yeah.
There are still people trying, as of 2020, I read an article of people trying to figure out if there's more to this.
Yeah.
This is still causing playground rumors.
It feels very unfinished. So, and it's hard to say because, these developers are jokesters. I wonder what they'll do in the deluxe version.
Yeah, me too. I wonder if they'll add to it.
Yeah.
If you go through everything in the beginning and instead of going upstairs to your boss, you go downstairs, the narrator says but Stanley couldn't do it. Like he couldn't reveal to his boss that he had left his post, hang down there. And he starts questioning his sanity.
Yeah.
That would make him go crazy. Maybe everyone disappearing means he's crazy as well. You start walking through these utility halls, and these start looping.
Yep.
But it's not a circle. It's just a loop.
It's just a line.
Yeah. It's just a line you continue forever. Really cool because it can take a moment to figure this out, partly because of the language of video games, right? Like being in a basement with repeating assets like that is not uncommon.
Right.
Like you play like Fear, you end up in a basement that looks like this, and a lot of the rooms look exactly the same. So you get that feeling of creeping dread that it's repeating.
Yeah. And also like there's that kind of reset that happens mentally when you go through doors. That's why you forget what you went into a room for. And like that can happen as well in virtual spaces. So that contributes to that a little bit too. And as you're going, Stanley says, no, I can't be insane. I must be dreaming, and yes. And suddenly Stanley was flying and your character starts floating. And suddenly he was in a field of stars and you're still in the room, but it just adds some star particle effects.
It looks really neat. Like it's cheap, but it looks super cool.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do this to wake up, like you're dreaming. And he's like, well, actually, why hadn't Stanley asked himself the most obvious question of all? There's a voice in his head. How can the voice be describing itself? Is he describing the voice that is describing the voice that is describing what he's doing?
Yeah.
Am I the dream of a turtle kind of stuff?
Yeah. Who's holding the mirrors that are pointing at each other? And, how important is it who held the mirror up first, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. And he's like, he's dreaming, like he's going to close his eyes. He's going to feel the sheet. He's going to, feel the pillow and wake up, and you close your eyes and it goes to black, and then you open them and it's the exact same scene you're in.
Yep.
Like, you're not dreaming, and Stanley starts losing it. Music kicks up, the screen turns red. You're screaming, you're begging for help, until eventually it turns all the way red. And it opens again with the same narration. Instead of saying this is a story of a man named Stanley, this is a story of a woman named Morella.
The narrator describes this woman, and we see this scene from above, who is standing next to the body of a man who was ranting and raving down the streets before he ultimately collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Implying that what you were playing through was some kind of dying fantasy. And Mariella, instead of feeling compassion or feeling sorry for this, is just relieved that she herself is not suffering like this. And instead of, waiting and calling help or doing anything, she remembers, oh, I have work to get to. Let's move on. And I would say just ignoring a body on the sidewalk is also pretty. I don't like the word that well, but crazy. Like it's not. It's not. That's not the way a human behaves.
No. Yeah, absolutely. But it is keying in on a key part of fiction that deals with insanity.
Yes.
Like her being like, oh, I'm glad I'm not that person.
Yeah.
That is the core grindhouse appeal of like a madhouse.
Yeah.
That's the part of our subconscious that it's touching
there, but for the grace of God. Yeah.
Yeah. Ableism or no, like
Yes.
that is why it works on our lizard brains a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good ending on that one.
And now we're at a really meaty one.
Yeah. This is the meatiest
Yes.
of them. This is so if you take the right door instead, and then you go down the maintenance tunnel. So when you take the right door, initially it's like, Stanley knew damn well that it wasn't the right way to the office, but maybe you wanted to stop by the employee lounge to admire it. I love the employee lounge because when you first show up, it says, like, what a beautiful room. This room has justified it. If you hang out in the room for a while, the narrator starts not selling the lie. And then eventually if you do this enough times, then as you just to admire it and you walk in, it goes, it was okay. Which I really, I love that delivery.
It's I love it because you're going to pass through here several times because of the way the game is structured. And, you're going to hear a lot of different ways that this room, has changed Stanley's life. And it's just kind of this large, kind of poorly laid out room with a couple of couches and some drink machines and a coffee machine. It sucks. But the narrator, he can only conceive the only reason why Stanley would disobey him to come here is it because he got something out of it, right? So he's working it into the story, and then like after this, he gives you an option, like you leave the hallway and it says, but fortunately there was a maintenance tunnel back to the story I was trying to tell. The door is open off to the left, or you could just continue going straight. If you go through the maintenance tunnel, there's another temptation. There's an elevator that goes down.
Yeah. So you can choose that or not down here. The narrator kind of, when you get down to the bottom, the narrator kind of dicks around with you. He's not sure which way you should go. He's like, oh, you should go to the one on the left. And, it doesn't work. And he's like, oh, no, the right. Like he closes the door before you get there. And eventually when you come out, you walk into the silo from the first ending full of TV screens. And the narrator says, oh, this is a spoiler. Like this, we can't use the story. You already know the ending of it. We should just start over. Yeah. And you think you're just starting over, but you are still in the ending.
It's so good. I love how many, like any of these that start over like that. As you try to think, okay, is this going to be new or is it not? Just that sense of doubt, the whole, I thought I woke up from the dream, but I was still dreaming kind of thing. Yeah. But like this whole thing is him hastily trying to come up with a story out of like the remnants of the old one, kind of like if he dropped his cards and they came up out of order and he's trying desperately to find his place. And because of that, because he lost his place, all of the space is now illogical. And when I say that, I mean like hallways will turn left 4 times, and they should pass through themselves. It's some real like antechamber House of Leaves or like stunt build engine maps kind of things.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. And he's like, well, it's broken. We have to start over again. But I don't think I find it hard to believe that we'll make progress if we just keep starting over and over again. when you do so, you get to the wrong room again. There are no doors there.
Yep.
So he says,
Yep,
go
it's
back
wrong.
Yeah,
Fucking
he's very
dump
casual
it.
about this. Huge like messing up a PowerPoint presentation energy. You know, it directs you to go back to your office, and you end up in the hallway that loops around again, as we mentioned. You double back, and you end up in this kind of dilapidated, unfinished room that he mentions. Like, we didn't finish this one. I don't even really know where this is at.
This is kind of creeping
He's
me
like,
out.
Yeah, it looks creepy. It's like a barn level or something.
Yeah.
He goes, well, how about this? You win. Congratulations.
Like
I know this was very
kids.
hard for you and you've earned it.
But he can't lie. He can't bring himself to reward you for doing nothing, for just kind of fucking him up. You're like, no, I know you didn't work for this at all. It's not going to do. So he restarts you. And he does like a perfect Dark Zero or like a Dead Space on you and says, okay, you wake up in the office and right outside, there's a long yellow line painted on the floor. It's called the Stanley Parable Adventure line. Here, this will make sure that everything goes the way it should. Just follow the actual visual cue that we put here, you know, and if you follow the line into my office and around the desk, you will emerge back out the door.
Yeah. As you follow the line, it seems to make sense at first, even though it's like dodging around stuff on the ground. You know, it's a video game. That stuff is stuck there. And the narrator starts questioning it. You know, whether this is following the line, the story. It doesn't seem very much like a story because it doesn't have a destination, but they say that the destination is more important, or the journey is more important than the destination. And as he's doing this, the line starts wavering and going up walls, going through things, you know, going up onto the ceiling and such. Becomes harder to follow.
Yeah. I love as he begins to doubt himself and just get into philosophical wankery. It's like his hand gets less steady drawing the thing in front of you. And it's not moving. Like it's all there. It is just being exposed to you as you walk along, timed to his narration.
Talk about doing a lot with a little.
Yeah.
You know, and that, like, this is just level design stuff. That's just a texture they put on.
Yeah.
On the thing.
So to get you back to get you back on track, he says, "Let's lighten the mood and play some music." And it's an adventure, and he plays like a knockoff Indiana Jones theme kind of thing as you're going through like file storage rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, very very good. You pass by a fern, and he tells you to remember it because it'll be important later. This is a lie. The line crosses itself back into the offices and leads you to the silo. Again, to the spoiler. And the narrator yells at the line. It's fully out of his control.
Yeah.
You know, there are powers here above him, and you restart again. As you try to follow the line, the door just closes. And he says, listen, we don't need the line. We can forge our own path.
I created this
Frankenstein's monster of the line.
We don't need it. Just again, what is the narrator subordinate to? You know, just the designer is invisible in this, but it just is constantly putting these things in, and the fact that he is rebelling against the line that he created, just like you rebel against him.
Yeah, put the Stanley Parable Adventure line in Smash.
Oh yeah.
Like, this is the character I most want for Smash.
Yep. Move over, JC Denton.
Yep. Yeah. And Gabriel Knight. Guybrush Threepwood. Put anything from a PC game in there, you fucking cowards. But if anything, it's got to be the Stanley Parable Adventure line.
Of course. So you're on your path. Yeah, you're going, but there's no direction, and space stops cohering. You're going through, you know, illogical hallways, and then as you're walking, the adventure line crashes back through the drop ceiling, like it is obviously like burst through, and you know, Stanley's like, or the narrator's like, no, just ignore it, just it'll go away. Don't look at it, don't follow it, and eventually it disappears back up into the ceiling.
Yeah, I love that. You eventually, as you make your way through here, you get to a circular room. He tells you to walk in circles while he thinks. He eventually opens a door for you, and it has an outline, like a flowchart of this ending, which you are only in the middle of.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it shows you're going to restart 8 times. The narrator will forget what happened, and he's like, I don't want to forget. Like, I don't want to be in the position that I put you in. essentially.
It's just
that's like the idea behind this ending, basically.
He is outraged and offended that this could happen to him with no awareness that this is exactly what he has been doing to you the whole time.
Narrator is to Stanley as Davy Reedon is to narrator.
Yeah. So, and he's like, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to stand here. And then the timer that is like, you've been in this, on this path for 17 minutes or so. It stops and he talks for a bit saying, oh, well, it feels really good. And he's cut off by a buzzer mid sentence and then it restarts. So it was never in his control in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you go in the first time you go to the warehouse, which you can go to down the elevator, down the right path. If you go down there, you can just follow this little crane that takes you across the way. And the narrator kind of says, like, listen, we got off on the wrong foot. You've been disobeying me. I'm here to help you. This whole story has actually been about you. And honestly, you're being selfish because the story isn't for me, it's for her. And we don't, the first time we've been introduced to like another character other than Mariella. You walk into a dark room here and there's a phone ringing under a light. It's like generally pretty creepy. And he's just like, it's up to you, Stanley. Can you place your faith in another? Can you get essentially can you get her back?
Yeah.
It kind of suggests around like a Cats in the Cradle, Jingle All the Way kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Which it does something way worse.
You were married to the job. You were neglectful of her, right? And so your choice is you can choose to pick up the phone, and when you do, it fades to white, and you're outside of apartment 427, just like there's office 427, and you hear your wife inside saying, "Oh, I'm finishing up dinner. I'll open the door for you in a moment." And her voice warps as the door opens and it reveals that she's a mannequin. And Stanley laughs at you. Oh, who'd want to commit their life to you? And this is him saying, all right, how about some emotional abuse? How about some existential, basically like mega gaslighting?
This is so bleak.
Yeah.
Like the mannequin still moves. It leads you into the apartment where you're in this kind of like small studio apartment or one bedroom apartment, staying in the kitchen. As the narrator is kind of dressing you down, this is the story of the death of a man named Stanley, his inconsequential existence. Every once in a while, there are prompts that come up there, not from the narrator, that are the prompts that you would get at your job. Like, good morning, Stanley, please press F. Every time you do, part of the apartment transforms back into office material, and it'll be like press, and it starts taking commands that you would do for work and starts contextualizing them in your life. So it'll just be like, just press F, just press N, and then it will be like, press Q to eat lunch, press W to go to bed.
Yeah.
Things you do in your day-to-day, work-a-day shitty life.
Yeah. And then like the narrator is describing, oh, Stanley worked this pointless job and he was miserable at it. He would sit there and in his mind, he would go on adventures to escape, and, he would make up these fantastical situations because, here's a quote, the mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. His fantasy was that he, was not in the situation that he was in. And as it talks about him going into this escape and the house, the life outside of work, the life outside of, being told what to do, incrementally changes back, the prompts start taking on the nature of things that Stanley never got to do. Press J to tell a story to your kid, press W to kiss your wife, press P to hang with the boys.
I love press P. Just a screenshot of like press P to hang with the boys. I'm surprised that hasn't been memified.
Yep.
Now that the boys are in, like people love talking about the boys.
Well, the boys are back in town, dude.
Yeah, the boys are back on Twitter. But I love press to hang out with the boys. It's turning into, there was no apartment,
right?
And the line, as the apartment is turning slowly into your office, it's questioning like, what is the difference? Like if you work in this work-a-day, drudgery, like the line is going to blur between your apartment and your work anyway. This is very similar to the museum thing where it's like you may as well not exist.
Yeah. Because you are locked in this and life is passing you by. There is something that landed you here, instantly unfulfilled, and all you can do, the most miserable thing is to be present in the situation that you're in, right?
Yes. And he says, he's like, listen, you fantasizing about all those things you can do is killing you. Like, you have no choice in here. Ignore the next button prompt. And you can't, because the game doesn't move on. Again, going into that, like, would you kindly stuff, you're always going to take the path ahead of you in a video game thing, but also tying it into real life. You're also just going to keep showing up for work, even if you hate your job. It says, press G to be at work in the next morning. And just nothing will happen. And when you do it, the transformation is complete. You're in your office. These prompts are random. I got press U to question nothing, which I thought was going to be intentional. I didn't realize that they were random.
Yeah.
Because it looks like you got 6.
Yeah. And then, the narrator talks about, it's trying to, get through to you. Like, it's almost like you just haven't, you haven't woke up. You're not fully in the bleakness of the reality. And then the prompt comes up. There's no button prompt. It just says, please die. And then you die, which is just Synecdoche, New York, but also that movie fucking destroys me. So there we are.
These are good. These are good themes to me.
Yes, these are incredibly good themes. Just the bleakness of, consigning the best years of your life over to something else, outside of you, and ending up empty-handed at the end of it, and also
it happens to almost all of us, and it's considered a virtue in our society.
Yeah, and even beyond that, this is the one that I think really lays bare a lot of what this game is trying to say about free will. And without getting too into like the, college stoner kind of things, what I have come to feel and what I think this game is saying is there is no such thing as a choice that you make on your own, because you're always defined by your circumstances. And also, what is you? Your executive decision is only one part of like the software stack that is you. And it doesn't talk to your limbic system directly, and it does not interact with or have a lot of control over where you live or how much money you have or who you're depending on or who depends on you. And so you can trick yourself into thinking the executive part of my brain is me, but everything is always constrained from the start by your shitty job.
It's all you.
Yes.
Like we greatly overstate the amount of freedom that we have.
Yes.
Especially like in this fucking country, where it's considered like a trucker slogan. It's the kind of thing somebody will just buy a hat to wear about how much freedom we have.
It's a thought terminating. It's a thought terminating cliche, right?
Yeah. So ludicrous to buy a hat with the idea that advertises freedom.
Yeah.
It's like a concept.
Yeah. Like you can decide that a form of free will exists, but also like, I don't know, it's a distinction without a difference, because no man is an island. There's a degree. It's a matter of degrees and complexity. Yeah.
Like there is free will. Like I can go out and just stand in front of a bus if I want to. I could, quit podcasting. Like I did things to end up where I'm at now, but also things happen to me.
Yeah.
And finding the exact line between those things is nigh impossible.
Yes.
Knowing what was responsible for what is very difficult and a maddening exercise.
Yeah. There are 1,000 strings attached to every decision that you make. Consider your divorce. You could reach the end and never know exactly where things went wrong.
Yeah.
Which is just the funeral monologue from Synecdoche, New York.
Yeah. And is also very true.
Yeah.
We should do that for Unfilmable at some point.
Oh God. But twist my arm, dude.
Yeah. That is a good horror movie.
Yeah.
So another ending, if you get to this phone that is supposed to have your wife on it and you unplug it, instead of answering the phone, the narrator pretends that he did not realize this was possible. He's like, hey, this decision was meaningful. None of your decisions were supposed to mean anything. That's not what Stanley would do. You must not be Stanley. You're the player.
Yeah, you're a real person. This changes everything.
Yep. That's risky. Listen, you need to learn a little bit about choice, and he shows you a 50s film strip about choice and consequence, which is very funny.
Well, it's basically just BioShock, kinda.
Yeah, it's funnier BioShock because it's like, you can choose to improve the lives of third world children or set them on fire. The way you improve their lives is to light their cigarettes for them. It's so fucking funny. I love that so much. Like, what a gentleman.
But just I just love this. I forget, might have been like Nick Sutner or somebody on a podcast talking about, I think, the Infamous games, which was at a point like around 2010 was where just, I think, the conversation around morality systems in games got to be like, started realizing how dumb it was. But it's like, the complexity of the choices that are given to you is, either save the box of puppies or put it under a crusher,
Yeah.
Like, that's not, I mean, yeah, it's a moral choice, but also it has nothing to do with anything, actually.
Yeah. Kill the puppy or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silly shit.
So, but and the strip goes on saying, making illogical choices is bad, and goes into all this like kooky FDA stuff, like, you should make 8 choices a day. And if you begin wondering if anything is meaningful, if any of them actually mean anything, you should just remember that on a cosmic scale, you're insignificant. None of this matters.
Yeah. This is one of those things where, like, I agree with that, but it's saying it in a very blunt way that reminds me, that feels like, oh yeah, this guy was 22 when he made this.
Yes.
Like, this is not the most sophisticated way to express this Denny's at 2 a.m. idea. But even I am sympathetic to it. It's an old, it's kind of a cliche, like it's an old Hitchhiker's Guide. The machine that shows your significance in the universe.
Yep.
However, so even having this education, things are fucked now. You go back in the phone room, but it's corrupted. And he says, you need to go back to the beginning to do this. As you head back to the lift now has fences on the edges so you can't leave.
Because you're a real person. If you die, it might matter.
Yeah. Like, we can't have you controlling yourself.
Yeah.
And as you head back, things are breaking down. We get back to that first branch point with the 2 doors, and the narrator says, like, listen, just do what Stanley would do. And when you go up to the boss's office, it's different. There's a voice activated lock, and the combination is Night Shark 115. But you can't speak. You're Stanley. The player can speak, but there's no medium or way to do it in the game.
Did you try speaking into a microphone that was hooked to your computer?
I said Night Shark 115 out loud. Because I like the idea of a night shark. Yeah,
Night Shark is good. There's a line I want to highlight in this as the narrator is, trying to figure out how to accommodate you. Is a little bit like an anxious host. He's like, unfortunately, it seems this place is not well equipped to deal with reality, which same. But yeah, and he like the narrator, as he keeps on saying, Night Shark 115, just say it. He loses his patience. Says, explain yourself. And no, I can't explain myself. I can't speak. And so he's like, all right, well, we're just going to put you back at the door to make your choice again.
Yep. And when we go there, if you take the right door, the geometry is corrupted. We can't continue. If you go left, we get to the conference room and everything is intersecting. It looks like a Steam glitch.
Yeah.
Like just a bunch of assets overlapping.
Something that I love about this, like the particular way that it is broken, it's one of those things where to make it look convincingly broken would be a lot harder to do than actually setting it up to be right. Like, I don't know how you would put this space together to make it as fucked up as it is without causing like a map leak error or something like that. Like, there's a seam that didn't close here because of the way this is. High degree of difficulty for that.
Big kind of presaging the beginner's guide.
Yeah.
As well, which deals with these kind of glitchy, unreal spaces in video games and amateur game making.
Yeah. So the narrator says, I can't deal with the fact that reality is corruptible. We're just going to keep reliving this over and over again. I'm just going to keep realizing that all of this could be broken in an instant. So he resolves to shut the game down.
Yeah. So it goes black here, and you're back in this ruined office. There, his voice kind of comes back, and he's chiding you like for being a child, for being insubordinate and ignoring his work. And he basically it cuts to black, and he ejects you. He ejects the player from the Stanley. You're standing above the choice. You're seeing Stanley in third person for the second time in the whole game, staying still. And the narrator is begging Stanley to move. You're all I have, but we are the player. We're moving up and down on top of the ceiling, looking down on the avatar that we're now disconnected from.
Yeah, and all three of us is trapped now. Because of this separation. Yep. Stanley without the player is nothing, and the narrator without Stanley is nothing. And that truth is too hard to bear.
Yep. Hand makes the glove.
Yep.
If you get to that crane and you jump off of the crane that leads to the phone and follow the narrator's instructions, we get our next ending, where you jump off onto this catwalk, and the narrator is really offended. He's like, "Oh, you don't trust me. You think I'm going to hurt you. Please just give me a chance." And you go into another room where you're presented with two doors, red and blue. And he says to go through the red door.
Yeah.
Which gives us our first ending here.
Yeah. So you go through the red door and you're stuck in a circular hallway that just keeps going and going. And the narrator is kind of trying to sell you, saying, all right, it's clear that we need each other, right? So let's just play together. I know that there was no trust there, before, but I will show you good stuff, right? Why don't I take you to something beautiful? And he opens the door, and you step into a black void. And at the end of the black void is another door that is opened up and lit, and you can kind of see this beautiful light coming through. And you end up in the one room that makes the narrator happy.
Yeah. On this kind of platform with this light show, this like Borealis.
Yeah.
Here. And he loves it. He's like, I actually feel happy. This is beautiful. But we're the player. We're not here to be content with a static thing. No. Like, as a player, we are driven to push forward towards a win condition. We're not set to enjoy the flowers. No. So we leave, and all it does is take us to a suicide room, like a room with a gigantic stairway that goes to nowhere, that is just for jumping.
Yep. And, the narrator is just trying to say, no, don't you want to go back to that other room? It's so nice. Isn't it great? Like, why would you want to be in here? And you climb to the top and you jump off.
Yep.
And
lose health.
Yeah. Just like you get a flash of red on the screen, and the narrator's like, no, if you do this, it'll just reset. I won't remember how to get here, and you're taking away the only moment of happiness. How could you be so cruel to me? Yeah.
And he's begging you. It's a great performance. If you dip back into the heaven room, he will show you new lights. He'll be like, let's go back to the room. And if you do it, he shows you new things, trying to entice you to stay in something that is beautiful but boring.
Yeah, it's a Winamp visualization. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's trying, isn't this nice? And he'll show you new ones. Like the desperation really comes through.
Yeah. But, you've got to jump from the stairs 3 or 4 times. As he says, my God, is this how much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from the stairs over and over again to be rid of it. Yep. And finally he's resigned. He says, it looks like you wanted to make a choice after all. Well, this one is yours. And as you jump and as you land, you're laying in a dead heap on the floor. He says, is it over? And halfway between him, like halfway through the sentence, he goes, I'm going back, and then restart. Like it's like Mika Lash. Like, no, I can't wake up. There's nothing for me there.
Very, very Mika Lash. Wants to stay in the Joy-Can.
Yeah.
And for him, the Joy-Can is the static thing. For the player, that's not going to work.
No.
Nothing can break. He wants that. Going through Blue Door, this is the one I think is the funniest.
Oh, yeah.
Of these to me. It's not the most tragic or anything, but I think this is very funny. You do everything we talked about before we go through the Blue Door. And he keeps resetting you, trying to make you go through the red door. He puts arrows on the red door. He puts the doors on opposite walls, sets you facing the red one, and you have to turn around to get to the blue door.
Surrounds the red door with lights.
Yes. Yep. If you keep insisting on the blue door, you go out of the game. You're in this cavernous room with this dead end walkway, and he's like, "These are we haven't gotten to this place yet. You're so clever. You got to the place we haven't built yet."
Yeah. So aren't you good? But the narrator says, you have to understand, I work really hard on this, and quite frankly, by ignoring me, by disregarding it, you're being very disrespectful. You're ungrateful, really, is what you are.
Yeah, I worked hard on my speech. I'm still going to read it. Okay, and he starts criticizing. This is like a developer talking to like a reviewer, like somebody evaluating.
Yes.
The game, he's like, if my way isn't right, what do you want? Like, what do you want to see? Vehicles, skill trees? Like, what dumb back of the box feature do you want on this game? You want more choices. You go back to the door choice room, but there's a third option here, the orange door. You go into that, and it's a room with 5 buttons where he wants you to rate his experience, or your experience of having that extra choice. So having a third choice of door, how much did you like that on 1 to 5?
Yeah, you either spin or choose. You spin the choice. There's a different voiceover for each one of these that you push, because I wanted to be as cruel as possible. I pressed 2 stars, the most baffling of the review scores. And he's like, "Oh, okay, this is good. You didn't absolutely hate it. We're on the right path."
Yeah, he's keeping his chin up. He says he takes his feedback and puts you back into the room, and now there's a leaderboard. Here, the leaderboard is so funny. It's just negging you, and the idea of like competing with your friends in the Stanley Parable is very funny to me. And then it shows like it just keeps putting you down at the bottom of the leaderboard until the one above you is a dead rat away from keyboard. It was very good.
But just like, hey, motivation, competition can motivate you, right? And we've got this connection. It's like competitive Moby Dick reading.
It's very, very good. Once you've done this, he restarts you again. He's like, I've been coming up with this new game. I've taken this time to come up with it. It's this beautiful and very artistic game with tons of meaning that is a commentary on what it's like to raise children. And it shows a photorealistic cutout of a baby moving towards fire. And we press a button and reset him. And that's it. He's like, this is really artful. This is going to set the art world on fire. Of course, the message only becomes completely clear if you play this game for 4 hours. I'll check back on you then.
Yep.
If you play it for 2 hours, he says, listen, I've actually come up with something different to add this, because a lot of people were coming up with like scripts and stuff that just press the button. So it's like they introduce another button, which is awkwardly placed away from this one, that is dipping a puppy into a vat of piranhas. And you have to keep them both safe.
Don't dip that puppy.
Yeah, it would be really tedious to do this for another 2 hours. You get unique narration as you do this, and if you actually do it for all of them, you get an achievement, and you get to meet the true soul of art, the true spirit of art, which is an obelisk.
That's so good.
That talks to you. Very, very funny. That's the arbitrary thing you do to get to true art. Big Disco Elysium vibes to that.
Yeah. Well, that obelisk, that monolith was initially a graphics glitch that people read a bunch of meaning into in the mod, and so that's how he worked it into the HD remix. Yeah. So
what you're going to do, because you're not a maniac, is let the baby burn.
Right.
And he's like, do you hate babies, or do you just like, he questions you about it. He's like, I'm out of ideas. Let's play another game. And he turns off the lights, and you wake up in Minecraft. And he's this dejected baby. He's like, oh, it's the one last thing you've always desired, a game I have nothing to do with.
And he says, I'll just be over here making my own stuff. I'll make something for myself, with artistic purpose. And you see him build a night one house for Minecraft just out of dirt, the little 2x1 room with a door in the front of it. And he says, if you really want to appreciate this, come and stand inside of it. Can't you feel it? But I'm going to make it even better. I'm going to make it out of diamond, which that is just the funniest way to make that better. Yeah. Not going to build a bigger house or a fun castle or something. I'm just going to make the same thing out of more expensive.
The 2x1 house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gonna make it out of
material.
more expensive parts. I just love that. Like, oh no, just it's gonna be the same basic first person shooter, but boy, are the surfaces shiny.
Yeah, very good. He says, so you have to go mine. So he sends you down in the mines, and you don't bring a light with you.
Right.
So eventually you're just wandering around in the dark. He's like, no, this is too open. And then you wake up in the intro to Portal, in the glass cell with the like radio playing here. And you do the first level of Portal.
Yeah.
God, it's so clever.
He says, I don't even know what this game is, but I love it. You trapped in a glass box, unable to do anything without me.
Yep. Very, very good.
Yeah.
And there are shades of like, the Portal, we talked about this before, like when you get behind the scenery in Portal, that is a pretty watershed kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And there are games that, mess with that and try to enact that and stuff. Clearly like an influence on this. That's something that is 100% developed and created, but feels like a glitch.
Yes, it feels you're literally and figuratively out of bounds. And also, like, the belligerent relationship between GLaDOS and Chell is similar.
The antagonistic narrator.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Like the antagonistic
and I'm
creator,
so mad at us
too.
for doing both Portal games at once instead of saving Portal 2 for a later episode.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Fucking idiots. Morons. We're so much older than 22.
I know. So you just do the first thing where you pick up the cube and you put it on a button. And the narrator decides as you're walking towards the elevator to go to the next stage, says, "Oh, I'm bored. I'm bored of this game and I'm bored of you. I don't need your validation. I'm going to go and make art stuff for me."
He, if you can actually lose the box here, like you can in Portal because it's main source engine, and in Portal it just creates another box that accounts for it. Here it accounts for it as well, but you actually soft lock the game. The narrator is like, "How did you manage to break that? You had to do that on purpose, and I'm not helping you. You just have to restart yourself."
Yeah, you got into this mess. You can get out of it.
Yep. So if you get to the crane in the warehouse, but you get off the crane before it moves.
There's more to that ending, actually. Like you drop through. Did you drop through the elevator shaft? In the game design ending?
I'm trying to think. Maybe.
Yeah, because
Tell me.
so he yanks the elevator up, leaving the exposed shaft, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go." You're left on your own, and you can just reset the game yourself. But if you drop through the shaft, you'll end up in a half finished version of the office from the game. And then if you drop again just off of the map, you will land in some dingy dark hallways that lead back to Stanley's office. You're actually in the version of the office from the source
from the demo
mod. Yeah, not from the demo, from the source mod. Yeah,
the original. Yeah.
And then like you get the ending narration with the narrator saying, just kind of musing, like, "I wonder if he found what he wanted down there." So, again, we need each other. Without the narrator, Stanley will be doomed to wander, just to wander and fall. The end will be here very soon. Very soon. I can wait. Yeah.
If you don't get on the crane, as we mentioned, you can head back. You go past the lounge there, and there's an open door that goes through the maintenance back to this path, which you can ignore, and you can get down to our warehouse. In the warehouse, there's a cargo lift that leads down. There's a sign that says penalty for misuse of cargo lift, 1,000. Penalty for jumping off cargo lift, 5,000. And if you step on the lift and then step off it, you're stranded.
Yep. Oh,
and
it's gone.
The narrator makes you kill yourself by jumping. Like you can make it, and it's an impossible to make jump.
Yeah, you can't jump. Just gonna splat at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you never get to walk on that floor, I believe.
No. You can actually make it down there and explore, but the game soft locks.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
If you get down there. Two things that are not endings that I want to mention real quick because they're cool. The broom closet.
Oh yeah.
Broom closet, which is really cool. It's not an ending, but there's a broom closet, and if you go into it, the narrator makes fun of you specifically for like looking for a hidden ending and bragging to your friends about how cool it was to do the broom closet and how pathetic that is.
Yeah.
when you don't leave, he's like, I must assume you're dead. Whoever's listening to this, please turn off the computer. You know.
Well, the broom.
And then the other thing.
But what I love about the broom closet, sorry to dwell on it, like as you're reading the stuff in the conference room, like there's a to-do list on one of the whiteboards, and one of the entries is get Chris out of the broom closet. As though that is just a pressing concern that has been going on for a while, that Chris is in there.
Yeah, fucking Chris.
Fucking Chris. So you can open it and look in there, but there's nobody there because everybody's disappeared.
I also really like the achievement you get for pressing room 205 5 times.
Oh, yeah?
Or 206. Because you start doing it, like you look at the achievement list and it's like, you know, tap this thing. And he stops you from doing it. He's like, you think you can get an achievement just based on that? That's way too easy. And he starts telling you other things to click in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And so you had to just go click this like really tedious big list. And then eventually you get it and you get the achievement. And is like, how is that an achievement? Like, what have you done? You know, he's making fun of that thing, which is very near and dear to my heart because I hate achievements. And half of them are just nothing.
Yeah. Just like no matter if you call them achievements or if you call them trophies, like, oh, I get a trophy for pressing that button a bunch. Okay.
Yeah. You should not be rewarded. It is not virtuous to do any of those things. Right. And using the language of virtue for it is fake.
It's weird and I would say corrosive.
Yeah. It damages you as a gamer.
And now we're into kind of like some I'm gonna call these the don't shit your pants endings.
Little endings.
Yeah, just little wee boys. As you're going through the offices several times, you may notice, you know, some of the screens just have like, you know, random junk on them, but there are going to be a few that have the words awaiting input on them, and you have to interact with them. You have to interact with 5 of those terminals across 5 different runs. If you do this, you know, there's no narration, but you are warped to a white void and you're surrounded by a column of rotating rows of colorful buttons, and text appears on the screen saying, "Welcome, Stanley, to heaven."
Yep. His Stanley is just pressing buttons. Yeah. Here, more beautiful buttons. Very cute. If you, another ending that started as a glitch in the original mod, if you close the door to your office before you leave, you would lock yourself inside. And they account for it. You just get a narrator that's like, Stanley says he couldn't handle the pressure. He decides to wait. He can just be happy and safe forever. Time loses all meaning. And the implication being that you basically Isaac yourself in the closet or in your office. Yeah.
I love the serious room ending. So,
because you think about the flagging in this game, like if you could actually no clip, if it allowed you to do it, boy, would it fuck up everything.
Oh God, I would love to see the way that this is all actually like laid out in the editor. I'm sure that's possible because it's the source engine, but like the ways that they accomplish what they have to accomplish with the spaces, I would like to see those levels just loaded up. But you know, to do this, the console in this game is not enabled by default. So you can go into Steam, right click it, and then add a little argument on the launch
on your INI.
Yeah, and, you know, just turning on the server cheats, right? So turn on the console, you go in and you enter the server cheat command into the console, and the narrator takes huge exception to this. You're whisked away to the serious room. There's nothing but a bare table. And you know, you need to stay here for 100 billion trillion years. I don't know how to convey to you how serious I am without putting you in the serious room. If you're here, I'm serious.
Yeah. And you get, each time you do it, you keep getting different narration of the serious room, like, you know, kind of dressing you down in different ways. Yeah. Here. Another good ending here, if you can, there's one window you can get out of because the detritus around the desk is positioned kind of like stairs. And if you jump out this window, you're in this white luminous void, as you might be jumping out of a window, and the narrator accounts for it. Like at first Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard the narration and realized this was part of the design. And he's asked, you get this thing where it's like, are you sick of this gag yet? And there's a yes or no prompt. Both of these lead to long anti-jokes.
Yep.
Basically, if you hit no, he just kind of muses and traps you there for a very long time in intentionally obtuse and unpleasant dialogue. If you hit yes, he says, well, you can just restart whenever you want, which I love, just reminding you, like, this is all fake.
Yeah.
And to kind of make you restart, he starts singing a limerick about how shitty you are.
Yep. Just dressing you down in this, and then it eventually turns into a kind of pleasant instrumental. But you've just got to you've just got to continue. Got to restart and go after the other endings. However, we've talked about the endings.
There's the only one we haven't missed is the whiteboard ending. Which triggers randomly. As you leave the first room, you'll go into a dead end with a whiteboard that just says you won. There's an other, like, just in the sake of completionism, there's also an achievement that triggers randomly, just to piss people off. There's an achievement in the menu you can turn on and off, whether you want it. It's in the options menu.
I love that so
you get
much.
it or lose it. Yeah, because achievements are fake, fools. Fools. And that's the Stanley Parable, which is like some of the most fun you can have being made fun of. I think.
And I just like this is a particular kind of humor. I don't even like this scratches a lot of the same itches for me as Nathan For You, which for as much as the joke about Nathan For You, is making fun of business, and you are kind of laughing at the social awkwardness of a lot of the stuff. So much of it is playing with the box of what what those businesses do, exemplified by Smoking Aloud, where he figures out a loophole to make to make it so people can smoke inside by turning it into a theater performance, or the haunted house that is super scary because they convince you that you got infected with the deadly disease and take you to the hospital, but the ambulance ride and the hospital are technically still part of the haunted house. Like there is that playing with the box, like, messing with expectations and reality kind of stuff that is part of a grander performance than just being a joke. And I would say, like, there's a lot of shared DNA to that. And that shared DNA is these are both things that I really like, and I think other people would too.
It's for lack of a better word, it's like meta.
Yeah.
It's the meta stuff. It's about the medium that it's in.
Yeah.
And that works for me pretty well most of the time. That is something I generally find funny. And the moment to moment writing, also really funny.
Yeah.
In this, like, just the line delivery, line deliveries and stuff like that. Just what a triumph, for something that is, and it's so, God, doing this after Horizon Zero Dawn is such a fucking whiplash, because this is so focused and wastes so little time.
Yeah.
Everything in this game contributes to its point.
Yep.
Like literally everything. Like no, you cannot take away. This is a 3-legged table. Like you cannot take away one of the legs and still have it be a table. Yeah. As opposed to the tablepede, the 100-legged table that was Horizon Zero Dawn, where you could take away almost all the legs and still get the essential message of it.
Yeah. And, you could say, like, you could take away or add an ending or two, but each of the endings, aside from like even like the fun little goofy ones do contribute to this a little bit, have something to say about choice in games. They're just coming at it from different angles, and what is it? Co-op and brevity cover for a lot of sins. Like, like if this was 15 hours, it'd be too much, but turns out it's 2 hours if you're taking notes. So Yahtzee.
Yeah. And there are, it's not like there aren't more things to say on the subject. It's not perfect in that it's all conclusive. It's perfect in everything it includes is necessary.
Yeah.
You could add to it, but you can't subtract to it from it. And think about what we cover in terms of this show with the medium we've chosen to dedicate our careers to. How often is that true?
I mean, it's rare.
Almost never.
Yeah.
Like, what is the last game we've done that we could be like, you couldn't take anything away from this and still have it work? Like, it's incredible. Like, it's a really, really impressive thing to me. And it's something that is entirely, comorbid with art games and indie games, in part because of their length. The more I think about the games, this isn't something I've just now thought of, but I've thought about many times, is like, there are a lot of works that justify a 60-hour runtime.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in the Slack, and I found out there's a How Long to Read website.
What?
there's a how that uses an average reading speed,
Okay.
And it tells you how long it takes to read a book
That
based on that speed.
I guess my Kindle does that when I buy a book, but like that is so weird. I would I would think it would be hard to find a meaningful data about that. Continue your point.
Well, so you can do a little test on there to put in your reading speed, and it just does the math. Like if you read this many words per minute, this is how long it will take you, and that doesn't have reflection or rereading or anything in it.
Yeah,
but it's a general guide, right? And it's just amazing that you'll go on that, and it's like, oh, I can read the complete works of James Joyce in the same amount of time it takes to play, 3, Far Cry games. Like there's a focus and an artfulness that comes with brevity. It's not just us being, doing this for a job and being the people we are.
Yeah. No.
There's something there, when you stretch a message or narrative or construct far enough, of course it fucking breaks.
Yep.
And this game is just like a wonderful, wonderful example of that. And so is the beginner's guide, which is entirely, it deals with some of the themes in terms of like authorship and stuff, but is just such a different, like more melancholy experience. And just like hits me, or like Soma, which we did this year. Like Soma would not work if it were a 12-hour game.
Right.
It would stretch to breaking. That kind of focus is incredibly admirable.
Yeah.
In terms of any kind of theming or messaging.
And I think that just a general thing that is true is that limitations create creativity. Modesty of scope demands clarity and focus of expression, right? And the more room that you have to sprawl, the more room that there is to lose people, and the more room there is for you to forget what you were trying to say of anything. And the larger price tag associated with creating something, means that you're going to have to, start designing to commercial interests instead of, instead of toward that focus and
artistic.
toward that clarity, towards artistic. I'm trying very hard not to be like pretentious about it. And I play, commercial art too. This is a game you buy. It's $15 that you spent. Yeah.
I like $7,000 in the Binding of Isaac, or 7,000 hours, into that game. Like it is not that we're above it. It's that a well-balanced diet includes both.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated by a perspective that throws their hands up and is like, all this stuff is basically the same.
Right.
When it's so clearly not.
Yeah.
Like there are things that make a game more artful or more, thematically sound. And it's worth thinking about those things, even if artful and thematically sound aren't the only things that are worth going to games for.
Right.
The taxonomy is important.
Yes.
Thanks us.
Yeah.
Thanks you. Hell yeah. Stanley Parable. If you have things to say about the Stanley Parable, hit us up by July 15th at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. That is the deadline for responses about all of the games we talk about in July, which includes, yes, there is Stanley Parable, but there's also Horizon Zero Dawn, Heat Signature, and Prey, the 2017 Prey.
Indeed. Also, if you have things to say for the following month's games, which are Sam & Max Save the World, Paradise Killer, or Chrono Trigger, that is the August 15th is your deadline there.
Yeah. The last episode of every month is a dispatch. The last game we cover every month, that is the premium episode. So for both Prey and Chrono Trigger, everybody will get the generalities, but our Patreon backers who go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, they will get the full versions of those episodes and every one of the premium WAFs we've done in the past.
Yeah. And a bunch of bonus shows in general. You can also leave us ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict, and tell your friends.
Yeah.
We appreciate. I think that's about it.
Think so. Thanks everybody. And until next time, just ignore the line.